He stared at the phone like it was an alarm that could change the shape of his life. Unknown number. Hospital name on the caller ID. He almost let it ring out, because hospitals didn't call people for good reasons. Hospitals called when something broke, when something was missing, when someone was gone. The call ended. 1 second later, it came again. He answered, voice rough from a long day. Hello. A calm woman spoke, professional, careful. Good evening. Am I speaking with Mr. Adrian Cole? Adrian's stomach tightened. Yes. Who is this? This is St. Briar Medical Center. We're calling about your DNA sample. Adrian blinked. My what? There was a pause, like she was checking a line on a script. The sample you submitted through our partnered lab. She continued. We need you to come in as soon as possible. Tonight, if you can. Adrian's hand went cold around the phone. Why? Did I test positive for something? Another pause. Longer. Then she said the words that made the room tilt. No, Mr. Cole. It's not that. Her voice dropped slightly. Your DNA matched a patient here, and the match shouldn't be possible unless you're related. Adrian's mouth went dry. Related to who? The woman inhaled softly. We can't discuss over the phone. Please come in. Adrian tried to speak, but his tongue felt too heavy. I don't have family. Silence. Then the woman said, gently but firmly, that's why we need you here. The call ended. Adrian stood in his tiny kitchen, the evening light fading through the blinds, the air smelling like cheap coffee and motor oil from his clothes. On the table was the DNA kit he'd paid for on a random impulse, something he did to kill boredom, something he joked about with coworkers. Now it wasn't a joke. Now a hospital had his DNA, and they were calling him like he was a missing piece. Adrian looked toward the hallway, where his little boy's laughter floated from the bedroom, where cartoon sounds played in a loop. Then he looked at the front door, and for the first time in years, he felt a kind of fear that didn't come from bills or broken engines. It came from a truth he didn't know was chasing him. So he grabbed his jacket, turned off the kitchen light, and whispered to himself like a prayer. What did I just wake up? 2 weeks earlier, Adrian had been a man who believed life was simple. Hard, yes, but simple. Work, home, dad duties. Repeat. He lived in a small apartment above a bakery, the kind where you could smell bread in the morning and hear delivery trucks at dawn. His car was old but reliable. His hands were always stained with grease, because he worked at a repair shop that served people who couldn't afford shiny dealerships. And he didn't complain. Not out loud. Because complaining didn't pay rent. Adrian was 29, built like someone who lifted heavy things for a living, but his eyes carried a tired calm. The kind you see on people who learned early that nobody was coming to rescue them. He had a 6-year-old son named Eli. Eli had Adrian's dark eyes and a stubborn little chin that made him look older than he was when he crossed his arms and refused vegetables. To Adrian, Eli was everything. Eli was the reason he woke up at 5:30, the reason he skipped lunch to take overtime, the reason he didn't go out with co-workers after a shift, because Eli needed him steady. Adrian didn't talk much about Eli's mother. Not because it was a dramatic story, because it wasn't. She was gone. That was the whole story. And Adrian had promised himself he wouldn't waste Eli's childhood chasing someone who didn't want to be found. So he built a life around what he could control. He controlled bedtime. He controlled school drop-offs. He controlled what little money he had. But he couldn't control loneliness. Some nights, when Eli fell asleep, Adrian would sit at the kitchen table and listen to the building creak. He'd scroll his phone mindlessly, not looking for love, just looking for something that didn't feel like the same loop. One night, he saw an ad. Find out who you are. Discover your roots. DNA test results in days. He laughed out loud. Roots, he said to the empty kitchen. My roots are unpaid bills. But the idea stuck. Not because he expected anything. Because he didn't know anything. Adrian had been raised in foster care. He didn't remember his birth parents. He didn't remember a warm family home. His earliest memory was a gray waiting room with a toy truck missing a wheel, and a caseworker who kept saying, You're safe now. Safe. That word sounded like a lie in his mouth. He had been moved from house to house until he was 16. Some homes were okay. Some were bad. Some of the kind where people smiled in public and turned mean in private. By the time he aged out, he didn't want anyone's help. He'd learned that help came with strings. So he built his own life. And maybe, just maybe, that's why he bought the DNA kit. Not to find family, but to prove he didn't have one. To close the door. He sent a sample in the mail on a Wednesday. Then he forgot about it, because life didn't pause for curiosity. The next week, Eli brought home a crayon drawing from school. It was a picture of a house, a sun, and two stick figures holding hands. Eli held it up proudly. "That's me and you." Adrian smiled. "Where's your mom?" Eli shrugged. "Teacher said draw family. You're my family." Adrian's throat tightened for a second. He took the drawing and stuck it on the fridge like it was a trophy. Then his phone buzzed. A message from the DNA company. "Your results are ready. Click here." Adrian clicked while boiling pasta. He expected boring stuff. Percentages. Regions. A map. But right away, the screen flashed something strange. Close relative match found. High confidence. Adrian frowned. "What?" He scrolled. The match name wasn't a person's full name. It was coded, like a hospital file. Patient ID SBMC 4471. St. Briar Medical Center. Adrian stared at it, confused. Then he saw another line, smaller. Match indicates immediate biological relationship. Parent/child or sibling. Adrian's kitchen suddenly felt too small. He didn't have parents. He didn't have siblings. He barely had anyone who knew his middle name. So why did his DNA match a hospital patient-like family? He tried to click the ID. It wouldn't open. He refreshed. Same thing. Then his phone buzzed again. An incoming call. From St. Briar Medical Center. And now, back in the present, Adrian was driving through the night toward the hospital, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping the phone like it might bite him. Eli was asleep in the back seat, still in his pajamas, head tilted against the booster seat, mouth slightly open. Adrian had carried him to the car because he didn't have anyone else to call at that hour. He told himself he'd just get answers quickly, then go home. But deep down, he knew better. Hospitals didn't call you twice in 10 seconds to tell you nothing. St. Briar stood at the edge of the city like a clean white block of light. Inside, everything smelled like antiseptic and quiet panic. Adrian checked in at the front desk. A young receptionist looked at his ID, then looked at her screen, and her expression changed. Not shock, not fear. Something like recognition. "Mr. Cole," she said quickly. "Yes, they're expecting you. Please, this way." She didn't ask him to sit. She didn't tell him to wait. That alone made Adrian's skin tighten. He followed her down a corridor that got quieter with each step, away from busy waiting rooms, away from people coughing and families arguing softly. They stopped at a door with a frosted glass panel. On the other side, voices murmured. The receptionist knocked once, opened it, and motioned Adrian in. Inside were 3 people. A doctor in a white coat with kind eyes and tight shoulders. A woman in navy scrubs holding a clipboard, her hands trembling slightly. And a man in a suit, older, expensive-looking, standing near the window like he owned the view. The doctor stepped forward first. "Mr. Adrian Cole," he said gently. "Thank you for coming. I'm Dr. Patel." Adrian nodded once. "What is this? Why are you calling me about my DNA?" The doctor glanced at the woman in scrubs. She swallowed hard. Then the man in the suit spoke before anyone else could. "You shouldn't have been contacted," he said sharply. Eyes on the nurse. "This is not protocol." The nurse flinched like she'd been slapped. Adrian's stomach twisted. "Who are you?" The man looked at Adrian like he was something inconvenient that had walked into the wrong room. "I'm Mr. Larkin. Hospital administration." Dr. Patel held up a calming hand. "Mr. Larkin, please." Larkin's jaw tightened. "We have legal exposure. That's what we have." Adrian's voice turned cold. "Exposure to what?" The nurse finally spoke, voice shaky. "Your DNA, it matched a patient's record here, because your sample matches their family profile." Adrian stared. Whose family profile? Dr. Patel stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was trying to keep the moment gentle. There's a patient here, he said. A young man. He's in critical condition. His name is Noah. Adrian blinked. Noah who? Dr. Patel hesitated. Then the nurse said it, barely above a whisper. Noah Cole. Adrian's breath caught. His hands went numb. He hadn't heard his last name said like that, said with weight, since foster care paperwork. Adrian shook his head slow. That's not possible. Larkin spoke again, sharp. Names can be shared. The nurse's eyes flashed with something desperate. Not like this. Dr. Patel's voice stayed steady. Mr. Cole. Noah Cole is listed as the biological child of a woman named Marissa Cole. Adrian's heart slammed. Marissa. He knew that name. Not from memory. From a file. A foster file. A line written once, then crossed out. Mother Marissa Cole. Status unknown. Adrian swallowed, throat burning. Why are you telling me this? Dr. Patel's eyes softened. Because Noah needs a transplant donor. Adrian stepped back like the floor had moved. A donor, he repeated. You called me because you want something from me. The nurse rushed in. Hands up. No, it's not like that. We didn't know you existed. The DNA company is partnered with our registry. When you submitted your sample, it flagged a match. Adrian's voice rose. A match to what? Who put my DNA in your system? Dr. Patel took a slow breath. A birth record. A cord blood sample. Adrian's mind went blank. What does that mean? The nurse's eyes filled. It means the hospital kept a sample from a birth, and it has been connected to Noah's record. Larkin snapped. Stop. Dr. Patel turned to Larkin, calm but firm. Mr. Larkin, enough. Larkin's mouth tightened, but he stayed quiet. Dr. Patel looked back at Adrian. Mr. Cole, he said softly, I need to be clear. We are not asking you to do anything tonight. We are telling you because you deserve to know why you were contacted. Adrian's hands curled into fists. So why does my DNA match this patient? Dr. Patel didn't answer right away. He waited until Adrian's eyes met his. Then he said carefully, like each word was a door opening, because it strongly suggests that Noah is your brother. Adrian stood there, breathing shallow, feeling like the room had turned to water around him. Brother. That word didn't fit his life. He had spent years believing he came from nowhere. Now someone was telling him he had a brother dying in a hospital bed. Adrian whispered, Where's my mother? The nurse glanced at Dr. Patel, then at Larkin, as if she already knew the answer would cause a fight. Dr. Patel said, That's complicated. Adrian's jaw tightened. Complicated how? Larkin stepped forward, voice low and hard. Mr. Cole, you need to understand something. Whatever you think you're about to uncover, this hospital will protect patient privacy and its own integrity. Adrian stared at him. Integrity. The nurse's voice shook with anger now. Don't say that word. Larkin's eyes narrowed. Enough. Dr. Patel looked at Adrian again, quietly. Noah is in ICU. You can see him, if you want. But there's something else. Adrian's chest tightened. What else? Dr. Patel hesitated, then nodded toward the nurse. Nurse Harlow was on staff years ago. She recognized your name. The nurse swallowed. I recognized the date. Adrian frowned. What date? She opened the clipboard and showed him a printed file. Adrian didn't understand most of the medical codes, but one line was plain. Birth, July 14th. Adrian's birthday. Nurse Harlow's hands trembled. I remember that night, she whispered, because 2 babies were born within minutes of each other. One was yours. Adrian's breath caught. What do you mean, was mine? He asked. Her eyes filled. I mean, I watched a baby boy get placed into the wrong bassinet. The room went silent. Adrian stared at her, not blinking. Larkin's face hardened. That is a serious allegation. Nurse Harlow shook her head quickly. It's not an allegation. It happened. I reported it. Adrian's voice dropped. And what happened after you reported it? Nurse Harlow looked at Larkin, then away. They told me I was confused, she said. They said I was tired. They moved me to another wing. Then the paperwork changed. Adrian's chest started to hurt. Dr. Patel's voice was quiet. If what Nurse Harlow is saying is true, it means you were switched at birth. Adrian's mind tried to reject it, but the name Marissa, the foster file, the match. It all snapped into a picture he didn't want to see. Adrian whispered, "So who am I?" And that's when Larkin finally slipped. He looked at Adrian, and his voice wasn't professional anymore. It was cold, personal. "Your problem," Larkin said. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Then Dr. Patel stepped between them like a shield. "Mr. Cole," Dr. Patel said firmly, "you have a right to your medical truth. The hospital can't erase DNA." Larkin's jaw clenched. Nurse Harlow's voice shook. "They tried to erase the night, but the records, the old records, still exist. Somewhere." Adrian stood still, feeling something new rising under the fear. Not panic. Anger. A deep, steady anger. Because if he was switched at birth, then his entire life, foster care, loneliness, struggle, wasn't just bad luck. It was someone's mistake. Someone's cover-up. Someone's decision to protect a reputation instead of a child. Adrian looked down at his sleeping son in the stroller the receptionist had brought in after they realized he had a child with him. Eli's small hand curled around a toy car. Adrian's throat tightened. He had fought so hard to give Eli stability. Now the past had walked into the room and demanded answers. Adrian's voice turned sharp. "Take me to my brother." Dr. Patel nodded. "Okay." Larkin stepped forward. "This is inappropriate." Adrian snapped his gaze at Larkin. "You don't get to decide what's appropriate in my life." Larkin's face twisted. Then he smiled, thin, controlled. "Fine," he said softly. "See him." But Adrian saw it in his eyes. That wasn't surrender. That was calculation. Because if the hospital really had buried a switch at birth, then someone like Larkin wasn't just worried about embarrassment. He was worried about consequences. And people who feared consequences often did anything to avoid them. As they walked toward the ICU, Nurse Harlow leaned close to Adrian, voice shaking. "Mr. Cole," she whispered, "there's something you need to know before you see him." Adrian's stomach tightened again. "What?" She swallowed. "Noah isn't just a patient." Adrian frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at Eli, then back at Adrian. He's the reason the hospital fought so hard to keep this quiet," she whispered. "Because Noah belongs to a family with power." Adrian's step slowed. "What family?" Nurse Harlow hesitated, then said it. "The Larkins." Adrian stopped. He turned slowly toward the suit behind them. Mr. Larkin's smile didn't move. Adrian's blood turned ice. "So Noah is Adrian began. Larkin's eyes stayed calm. "My son," he said. The hallway suddenly felt too bright. Adrian's voice cracked. "Your son is my brother?" Larkin tilted his head slightly. "It appears so." Adrian's hand shook. If Noah was Larkin's son, and Noah was Adrian's brother, then Adrian's mother had given birth to a child connected to this man. Or the switch wasn't random. Or worse, the switch was intentional. Adrian's mind raced. And as the ICU doors opened, the real fear hit him. If the hospital had been lying for nearly 30 years, how far would they go to keep lying now? Noah lay in a glass-walled ICU room, pale under clean sheets, tubes and monitors doing the work his body couldn't do alone. He looked familiar, not in a way Adrian could place at first. But when Adrian stepped closer, he saw it. The same chin, the same eyebrow shape, the same small crease at the corner of the mouth. Adrian's chest tightened. Dr. Patel spoke quietly. "Noah was in an accident. His liver is failing. We've been searching for a match." Adrian swallowed. "And my DNA matched." Dr. Patel nodded. Strongly. Adrian looked at Noah, and something in him softened despite everything. He hadn't grown up with a brother, but his body recognized him anyway. Eli stirred in the stroller, rubbed his eyes, and whispered, "Daddy, where are we?" Adrian crouched, smoothing Eli's hair. "Hospital. You're okay." Eli blinked at the glass room. "Who's that?" Adrian's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. Because how do you explain to a child that a stranger behind glass might be family? Before Adrian could answer, Larkin stepped closer, voice low. You should do the test, he said. Adrian turned sharply. You mean donate? Larkin's face stayed controlled. If you can save him, you should. Adrian's eyes narrowed. And what do I get, Mr. Larkin? Larkin's jaw tightened. You get to do the right thing. Adrian laughed once, bitter. That's funny coming from you. Larkin's eyes hardened. Watch your tone. Adrian stepped closer, voice low but sharp. You watched my life from a distance, didn't you? You knew something. You kept quiet. Larkin didn't deny it. He just said, the past doesn't matter as much as a life hanging in front of you. Adrian stared at Noah again. He thought of his own life. The nights he went hungry. The years he felt unwanted. He thought of Eli, the child he refused to let feel that kind of emptiness. Adrian's voice softened, but the steel stayed. I'll do the test. Not for you. For him. Dr. Patel nodded. Thank you. But Nurse Harlow's face stayed tense, like she was still holding something back. Adrian noticed. What? He asked. She swallowed. Mr. Cole, if you are a match, it confirms the relationship. And if it confirms the relationship, it confirms the switch. Adrian's voice dropped. And if it confirms the switch. Nurse Harlow looked at Larkin. Then the hospital is exposed. Larkin's smile returned, thin again. No one is exposed if people behave. Adrian's spine chilled. That was a threat. Not loud, not direct, but clear. People behave, or people get handled. Adrian looked at Dr. Patel. I want copies of everything, he said. Every record tied to my birth. Larkin snapped. That's not how. Dr. Patel cut him off calmly. It is how, actually. With patient consent and proper request. Larkin's eyes narrowed. Be careful, doctor. Dr. Patel didn't blink. I am. Adrian realized then that Dr. Patel wasn't just a doctor. He was a line between Adrian and a system that wanted him quiet. The blood draw happened quickly. Eli sat beside Adrian, swinging his feet, watching with wide eyes. When the nurse taped Adrian's arm, Eli whispered, Daddy, are you sick? Adrian forced a smile. No, just helping someone. Eli nodded like that made sense, then leaned his head on Adrian's shoulder. And in that moment, Adrian promised himself something. No matter what he found, he would not let the truth break Eli's world. 2 days later, the hospital called again. This time, Adrian was at work, under a car, oil dripping, radio humming. His phone buzzed. St. Briar. He slid out from under the car and answered. Dr. Patel's voice was quiet. Mr. Cole, you're a match. Adrian's heart kicked. For Noah? Yes, Dr. Patel said. And your relationship. The results strongly confirm you are biological siblings. Adrian's throat tightened. So it's true. Dr. Patel's pause said yes before words did. It's true, he said. But Mr. Cole, there's something else. Adrian's chest went cold again. What else? Dr. Patel's voice dropped. Someone accessed your file last night. Unauthorized. Adrian's blood ran ice. Who? He asked. Dr. Patel exhaled. We don't know yet. But I wanted you to hear it from me. Please be careful. Adrian's mouth went dry. Are you saying someone is watching me? Dr. Patel didn't answer directly. He didn't have to. Adrian's mind raced as he drove to the hospital that night, with Eli again in the back seat. He noticed cars behind him longer than normal. He noticed the same headlights twice. He told himself he was imagining it. But fear doesn't invent patterns without reason. At the hospital, Larkin met him outside the ICU. This time, he wasn't alone. 2 men stood behind him, quiet, built, blank-faced. Not security uniforms. Just muscle and suits. Larkin smiled. Mr. Cole, you're a match. That's excellent news. Adrian's jaw tightened. Where's Dr. Patel? Larkin's smile didn't move. Busy. Adrian looked past him. Where's Nurse Harlow? Larkin's eyes sharpened. Transferred. Adrian's stomach turned. For what? Larkin leaned in slightly. For talking too much. Adrian's fists clenched. Larkin's voice stayed smooth. Let's be simple. You donate. Noah lives. You walk away with a generous compensation for your time and discomfort. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Compensation. Larkin nodded. A new apartment. A clean start. Your son's school paid for. You'll never worry again. Adrian swallowed, mind racing. It sounded like rescue. It smelled like a muzzle. Adrian asked quietly, "And the truth?" Larkin's smile sharpened. "The truth is whatever keeps my son alive and my hospital standing." Adrian's voice dropped. "So you did know." Larkin didn't deny it. He just said, "You don't understand what you're holding." Adrian stared at him. "I'm holding my life." Larkin's eyes went cold. "You're holding mine." Then he smiled again, softer. "Sign this," Larkin said, holding out a document. Non-disclosure. Simple. You protect Noah's privacy. We protect yours. Adrian looked at the paper. His hand shook, not from fear, but from rage. He could donate without signing this. But Larkin wanted control. Adrian glanced toward the men behind him. Then he looked at Eli stepping out of the car, clutching a small toy car, rubbing his eyes. Eli blinked up at Larkin. "Hi." Larkin barely looked at him. Adrian's anger turned sharp. He realized the real weapon here wasn't money. It was pressure. And pressure always aimed at what you loved most. Adrian took the document. Larkin's smile widened. Adrian folded the paper slowly and slid it into his pocket. "I'll read it," Adrian said evenly. "I'm not signing anything tonight." Larkin's smile faded. "You don't have time." Adrian met his eyes. "Neither does your son." For the first time, Larkin looked thrown off. Because Adrian had done something Larkin didn't expect. He didn't beg. He didn't obey. He didn't run. He held the only leverage he had. His choice. Adrian walked past Larkin toward the hospital doors, with Eli beside him. Larkin called after him, voice tight. "Mr. Cole." Adrian didn't turn. Larkin's voice lowered. "Be careful with heroes. They end up broke." Adrian's jaw tightened. He kept walking. But now Adrian understood the real fight. This wasn't just about a DNA test. It was about a cover-up that had stolen decades from him, and a powerful man who wanted to buy silence. Adrian went straight to the one person Larkin couldn't intimidate with hallway threats. An outside lawyer. Not someone connected to the hospital. Not someone connected to administration. Dr. Patel had given Adrian one name quietly on the phone before Larkin could intercept everything. "Call Ms. Reyes," Dr. Patel had whispered. "Tell her I sent you." Adrian did. Ms. Reyes listened without interrupting as Adrian explained everything. The DNA match, the nurse's memory, Larkin's offer, the NDA. When Adrian finished, she asked one question. "Do you want the truth, or do you want comfort?" Adrian swallowed. "Truth." "Then you need proof," she said. "Not feelings. Not rumors. Records." Adrian's voice dropped. "The hospital has the records," Reyes said. "Hospitals have records. People have copies." Adrian's mind flashed to Nurse Harlow. Transferred. Silenced. Maybe scared. Reyes continued. "If there was a switch, there were two babies. You're one. Who's the other?" Adrian's chest tightened. "Noah. And who was supposed to be in your place?" Reyes asked. Adrian's blood ran cold. He whispered me. Reyes's voice stayed steady. "Exactly. If Noah is Larkin's son but also your brother, then your mother is tied to Larkin's world, either through relationship or through a forced choice." Adrian's throat tightened. "What do I do?" Reyes said. "You donate if you want. You can save a life without selling your silence. But we also move fast to secure your birth records before they disappear." Adrian's jaw tightened. "They already accessed my file." "Then they're already acting," Reyes said. "So we act smarter." That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table while Eli slept, staring at the drawing on the fridge. Family. He had always thought family was something you built. Now it was something chasing him. The next morning, Adrian returned to St. Briar, not alone. Ms. Reyes came with him. So did an investigator with a small badge and a calm face. They walked into the hospital like they belonged there. Larkin met them in the lobby. His smile vanished when he saw Reyes. "Who is this?" he demanded. Reyes smiled politely. Counsel. Larkin's eyes narrowed. We're not discussing anything. Reyes held up papers. You are, actually. We're filing an emergency request for Adrian Cole's complete birth and neonatal records, including chain of custody logs for any stored samples. Larkin's voice turned sharp. Those are protected. Reyes's smile stayed calm. And so are his rights. Larkin leaned closer, voice low. You're trying to ruin a hospital. Reyes replied. No. You're trying to hide a mistake. Larkin's eyes flashed. Then he did something Adrian didn't expect. He softened. He looked tired for a second. And he said quietly, My son is dying. Adrian's chest tightened. For one heartbeat. Adrian saw the human beneath the suit. Then Larkin's face hardened again. Whatever happened years ago, Larkin said, it doesn't matter more than my son today. Adrian's voice was calm. It mattered when it was my life. Larkin stared at him. Then he said coldly, Do the transplant. Then we'll talk about your feelings. Reyes cut in. This isn't about feelings. This is about fraud, negligence, and tampering. The investigator stepped forward. Mr. Larkin, we're going to need access logs. Larkin's jaw tightened, and Adrian realized something with a sick twist in his stomach. Larkin wasn't just scared of the truth. He was scared of the timing. Because if Adrian exposed the switch before the transplant, Noah's case would become a public storm. And storms delayed surgeries. Storms invited questions. Storms might cost Noah his chance. That was Larkin's leverage. His son's life. Adrian's hands clenched. He looked at the ICU wing. He thought of Noah's pale face. And Adrian made his choice. He turned to Reyes. I'll do the transplant. Reyes's eyes widened slightly. Adrian. Adrian held up a hand. I'm doing it for Noah. Not for Larkin. And not for silence. Adrian turned to Larkin. But I'm not signing an NDA. Larkin's eyes went cold. Then we don't have a deal. Adrian replied, steady. It's not a deal. It's a donation. Dr. Patel appeared then, like he'd been waiting for the moment to step in, with witnesses present. He met Adrian's eyes and nodded. And Adrian knew Dr. Patel was choosing a side. The surgery was scheduled. And for the first time in days, Adrian felt the strange calm of a man who had stopped trying to protect his old reality. Because the old reality was already gone. Now it was about what he built next. The proof came from the person everyone underestimated. Not the lawyer. Not the investigator. Not even Dr. Patel. It came from Nurse Harlow. She found Adrian in the hospital corridor that evening, eyes wide, breath shaky, holding a small folder like it weighed 100 pounds. They're moving the old records, she whispered. Tonight. Adrian's heart kicked. Where? Harlow swallowed. Basement archives. They're scanning and shredding. I heard them. Adrian's blood ran cold. That's illegal. Harlow's eyes filled. They don't care. Reyes stepped closer, voice calm. Do you have anything? Harlow held out the folder with trembling hands. I kept copies. I was scared. I shouldn't have. But I did. Adrian's throat tightened. Copies of what? Harlow opened the folder. Inside were old forms, yellowed, dated, signed. 2 birth bracelets. 2 infant footprints. 2 names. One bracelet had Baby Boy Cole with Adrian's birth time. The other had Baby Boy Larkin with Noah's birth time. But the footprints were swapped. And on the bottom of the page was a note in shaky handwriting. Placement error reported, instructed to correct paperwork. Reyes's eyes went hard. The investigator inhaled sharply. Adrian stared at the page until his vision blurred. Because there it was. Not a feeling. Not a guess. A written confession from the past. And a signature. R. Larkin. Adrian's chest tightened. R. Larkin, he repeated. Mr. Larkin's father. The hospital dynasty. The man who had likely built the system his son now controlled. Reyes's voice was quiet. This confirms it. Adrian whispered. So the switch was covered up. Harlow nodded, tears slipping. They didn't want scandal. The Larkins funded the maternity wing. They said it would destroy donor trust. Adrian's voice cracked. So they destroyed my life instead. No one answered, because they couldn't. That night, while Adrian lay in a hospital bed preparing for surgery, Larkin came to see him. Alone. No bodyguards. No smile. He sat in the chair beside Adrian's bed and stared at the floor. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he said quietly, "My father was a monster." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "And you?" Larkin flinched slightly, then looked up. "I don't know what I am," he admitted. "I grew up believing the hospital was everything. Reputation, control, legacy." Adrian's voice was calm. "And I grew up believing I was nothing." Larkin swallowed. "When Noah was born, my father told me, the world will forgive anything but weakness." Adrian stared. "So he hid the mistake." Larkin nodded once. "Yes." Adrian's jaw tightened. "And you kept it hidden." Larkin's voice turned raw. "I didn't know until recently. I didn't." He looked away. "But when I found out, I was scared. Not of you. Of losing him." Adrian's voice softened slightly. Not because Larkin deserved it, but because Adrian understood fear. "You don't get to trade my truth for your comfort," Adrian said quietly. Larkin's eyes glistened for a second, then hardened again. "Then what do you want?" Adrian stared at him. "Justice," Adrian said, "and a clean future for my son." Larkin swallowed. "Noah comes first." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "No, truth comes first. Because without truth, you'll keep hurting people and calling it protection." Larkin didn't answer. He stood up, stepped toward the door, then paused. Without turning, he said, "If you expose this, the hospital will collapse." Adrian's voice was steady. "Then it deserves to." Larkin left. The surgery happened. Adrian donated. Noah survived. And the next week, St. Briar exploded. Not with screams. With documents. With investigations. With headlines. With a lawsuit that didn't just mention error, but cover up. Dr. Patel testified. Nurse Harlow testified. The investigators submitted the access logs showing Adrian's file was touched without permission. Reyes filed for protection for Adrian and Eli. And when Larkin tried to defend the hospital, the papers with his father's signature hit the table like a hammer. The truth was undeniable. Adrian didn't become rich overnight. He didn't wake up in a mansion. He didn't suddenly get a perfect family. But something changed. Something real. He visited Noah during recovery. The first time Noah was awake enough to speak, he looked at Adrian and whispered, "You're my brother?" Adrian's throat tightened. "Yeah." Noah's eyes filled. "Why did you help me?" Adrian swallowed, then said the simplest truth he had. "Because nobody helped me," Adrian said. "And I refuse to be that kind of man." Noah cried quietly. Adrian reached out and held his hand. Not as a favor, as a beginning. Months later, Adrian stood in his apartment kitchen as Eli ate cereal, crumbs on his shirt, humming to himself. Eli looked up suddenly. "Daddy." "Yeah." Eli frowned. "Do I have family?" Adrian's chest tightened. He thought of Noah. He thought of the foster file. He thought of Nurse Harlow's shaking hands. He thought of the fact that family could be stolen and still found. Adrian smiled softly. "Yeah," he said. "You do." Eli grinned. "Who?" Adrian walked over, kissed Eli's forehead, and said, "Me." Then he added, "And maybe more people soon." Eli beamed like that was the best news in the world. And Adrian realized something he'd never realized before. The DNA test didn't just reveal where he came from. It revealed what kind of man he chose to be after the truth. So if you were Adrian, would you have donated to save the brother tied to the people who stole your life? Or would you have walked away and let the past pay for itself?